This guy applied for 1,000 jobs to see if there's a labor market shortage, and let's see what he came up with. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to react to a video that I found that popped up on my YouTube feed. There's a video created by the YouTube channel Logical Finance, and in it, his title is Labor Shortage. He applied for 1,000 jobs to find out, and he goes through this experiment where he actually applies to 1,000 jobs and walks through his whole entire process and then his results. So I was watching it and I had some reactions to it from a recruiter's perspective, and I felt like it was a learning opportunity for a lot of people who are struggling in their job search. So I want to walk through his video and point out some of the things from my perspective as a corporate recruiter that he could improve on in order to get a better response rate. And then we'll look at his results and see if we are indeed in that labor shortage that everybody is saying we are. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more videos just like this one directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, full disclosure, I do not know Logical Finance and just happened across this video. This is the only video I've watched of his. And my first impression is that he actually does some pretty nice work. So if you're interested in more finance related information and content, go and check out Logical Finance's channel. I'll leave a link for it. And I also want to point out that this is not to be critical of his video. I think that he did a lot of really good work, and the video itself is very high production quality. So I can appreciate that. I'm just looking at it from my recruiter lens and specifically from a career coaching perspective of how we can improve our chances in the application process to ultimately land that perfect job for you. So without further ado, let's go and check out the video.
I decided to apply for 1,000 jobs because I keep hearing that the job market is broken. Well, let's find out how bad it really is.
Where have all the workers gone?
Labor is scarce right now.
So I think I'm gonna...
Okay, so first things first, 1,000 jobs is extremely dedicated by this guy. I don't know how long that would take to make, even with easy apply, finding 1,000 jobs that you can apply for, that you would be reasonably qualified for, and then also the act of applying for them is, I mean, kudos to him for his dedication to his craft. Right now, it is a very difficult labor market from a recruiting perspective for a lot of positions. I can't speak for on the hourly side as much because I don't really do a whole lot of that type of recruiting. But I know that a lot of the retail, a lot of heavy industry, a lot of trucking, a lot of those types of industries are struggling to find people. From a skilled labor and professional, especially in things like software, the software space is very competitive. It's really difficult to find people in highly technical jobs right now, really across the board. I would say the positions that I'm finding that are not necessarily as difficult are things in sales or business development. I've heard anecdotally that finance is also relatively robust and still pretty easy to find candidates for. Any recruiter friends who are listening, feel free to chime in and let me know your thoughts on the market. But that's what from my perspective, what the market looks like.
I'm gonna apply for these jobs using fictional names. Now, since it's been so long since I've done my own resume, I'm gonna buy a template from Etsy. Okay, so the main issue I'm having with this is that almost every template I'm seeing has some sort of objective statement or
Okay, first of all, please don't buy your resume template off of Etsy. And the reason being is that I've looked through a lot of Etsy myself. I've looked through a lot of Canva. I've looked through a lot of the freebies that are out there. In almost every case, the resumes that they provide are designed by a graphic designer. And it's not to mean that a graphic designer can't design a very beautiful resume. It's not to say that you can't even get interviews from it. But as the job seeker, we want to give ourselves the best chance of getting noticed by the recruiter to get that first round interview, to get through the process, and not only that, to be discoverable long term. Recruiters typically will search through Google, through the back end of their ATS system, especially in bigger enterprise companies, where we will search actively for people who've applied to similar positions in the past, and we may reach out to you again for a different role. And that's why a lot of times you'll get a recruiter that'll kind of pop out of the blue for a company you maybe applied to a long time ago and you weren't quite sure about it, or didn't remember applying for it. They'll reach out to you because they probably found you through Boolean search on their ATS system. For the resumes that are in Etsy and other places like that, these templates that you get, you are going to be essentially invisible just by the layout of them. Graphic designers have the best intention in mind, but really their end goal is to design a resume that looks really pretty, versus actually being functional. My recommendation would be to try to find something very clean and simple without all the graphics, without all the columns, all of that kind of stuff. Try to keep it as clean as possible. We want to have maximum discoverability. And that's, I did create a template that's recruiter approved in my Resume Rocketfuel course. So this is a little bit of a shameless plug, but if you're looking for a template that would actually have the ability to get you results, then check that one out. In general, a little litmus test for your resume is if you are applying for a job and you're finding that you have to do a lot of manual data entry after you apply. You have to like put your address in, you have to put your phone number in because it's just not pulling up correctly. That's a good indicator to you that your resume is not ATS compliant. The ATS system is not scraping your resume correctly to be able to pull it in and populate the back end of the ATS system. So if you're finding that if you're noticing that you're applying to jobs and you're doing a lot of kind of correcting of the data that it scrapes, then you may want to look at a different style of resume going forward. All right, so let's get back to his point here. Let me just rewind just a hair.
I'm seeing has some sort of objective statement or profile section, so I may just have to get one and delete that. I'm no resume expert, but I've always thought those sections were kind of pointless and silly.
I don't disagree with him on the objective statement. However, I do like to see a career summary because it does help brand you or profile you correctly to a recruiter. Because not every case can we read your resume very quickly and pull out what kind of profile you are. So the objective statement I agree with, but I wouldn't necessarily scratch all the stuff that he's talking about.
So in my opinion, the best case scenario is it gives no information. Being that I'm going to be applying for 1,000 jobs, I want to do as little customization as possible.
Okay, for the sake of this video, I understand why he's doing as little customization as possible because he's trying to get a litmus test for the base level, but in general, your results are going to be much less impactful when you're not customizing your resume. That's the single most impactful thing that you can do. So if you don't take anything else from my channel, especially when it deals with resumes, is customize your resume, because that is going to be the single biggest thing that you can do to increase your chances of getting the callback. So I'm already a little skeptical of his results because number one, he's using a template that's not ATS approved or compliant. And it's probably going to be pretty bad, the resume that he grabs. And then number two, no customization, and he seems to be having some titling issues. So we're already setting ourselves up for some very limited results just based on what he's saying.
Okay, so I ended up buying and filling out a couple resumes here, and I must say, I think we got a couple winners. Now, I'll be the first to admit, filling out resumes was a bit more challenging than I expected. Yeah, a resume, it definitely takes some work. It is definitely a skill that you need to learn if you're serious about your career. And let's just take a quick look at this resume. I hope that this is not the version that he's sending over, because you've got a generic contact information, generic college. It's all just, it looks like he didn't even customize it at all. I mean, it looks like this may be right from the template itself. So let's see if he's actually created any of this stuff. But yeah, it does take a lot of effort, and it takes some skill. You have to really know what you're doing to write a good resume that's actually going to get results. If you're noticing that you're applying for jobs, hopefully you're applying for not 1,000 jobs and not getting results. But if you're applying for job after job and you're not getting results, and assuming that you're reasonably qualified for the role that you're applying to, it is almost always a resume issue. So circling back, if your resume looks like this, can certainly see why I'm very skeptical that he's going to get good results. That said, I've filled these out based on the way I would like to see them as a potential employer.
Okay. I'm not sure what kind of employer you would want to be, but as a recruiter, this is not at all what I would like to see in a resume.
So I've got these two different resumes, and I think I'm going to do a total of 2 different versions of each one.
I do like having versions of resumes. I do recommend that you have more than one version of your resume, especially if you are you have multiple verticals in your career. We want to have customized resumes for each particular vertical. We don't want to be a jack of all trades on our resume. We want to niche down and really be specific about the types of resumes that we're submitting. You'll have much better results than being a jack of all trades.
where the candidate is expecting to graduate from college in the next few months, and another where our candidate never went to college and just has a high school diploma. So when all is said and done, we're gonna have 4 resumes. Each resume is gonna have a college and a high school version, and we're gonna swap out the names Demetrius and Tanner on each one. As far as work experience goes, I'm gonna have one version with the well-known retailer. The other is gonna be a well-known and well-respected restaurant chain. Now,
Okay, so I'm assuming then the resume that he just showed us was just a template. Hopefully he's customizing it a little bit, and it sounds like he may be doing that.
to keep track of all the responses, I set up a new email address and a new phone number for each resume for each of our candidates. It took a lot of work, but we're ready to apply for jobs.
This guy is like super dedicated to this video, considering he's not even a career expert. His focus of his channel is, I think, on finance, but I commend his dedication here.
So this application is asking for a joke. How about, I don't really know how to say this to you, but Worcestershire.
I know that this company is trying to be cute, and realistically, this tell us a joke thing is not going to be a disqualifier. So they're probably just trying to make it lighthearted. So I guess I can appreciate that from the hiring manager or the hiring authority perspective. That being said, when companies put in this kind of stuff, it is pretty aggravating because it does require the job seeker can have anxiety about, I don't know any good jokes, and they're going to think that they're going to lose the opportunity. And then it's also just adding another layer, another step into a process. And an employer will say, well, if you're really interested in our job, you should go through our whole process. And I don't disagree with that on some level, but fundamentally, when somebody's in an active job search, they're applying to dozens of jobs at a time. And this kind of stuff is kind of aggravating.
Okay, here's one. Do you speak Spanish? I'll say yes, and in parentheses, sí, which, if you didn't know, is Spanish for sure. So the way that I'm actually applying for all these jobs is one of 2 methods. First, I took a list of the S&P 500 companies, so 500 of the largest companies in the US, and I just go to their career site and you look for entry-level jobs. The next
Okay, so that's actually not a bad method to go and do job search. If you have target companies that you like, going in directly to an employer's website, you will have usually the most accurate list, because a lot of times jobs will get scraped out to boards and then employers will pull them down once they're either filled or they're no longer filling the job. Maybe they cancel the rec. And if it's been scraped out to a job board, the job board won't always accurately pull it back down again. So they'll have to go out and actually cancel the recs in each one of those job boards. But a lot of companies have a service that basically, when you post the job on your ATS system, it actually propagates it out to a whole bunch of sites. So honestly, I don't even know what sites my job postings go out to even go back and cancel them. So if you're looking for the most up-to-date list of jobs, it's definitely worth your time to go onto the employer website in order to do that.
next way is I'm going to career websites like Indeed, Career Builder, and I'm searching for entry-level jobs on there. I find companies and positions through there.
If you're curious about job boards and which ones are best, I did make a video recently about job board shootout and talk about Indeed in there.
And then go directly to their websites. In my own experience, when I've received applications, it always meant a lot more if they went directly to our website as opposed to a job board.
Generally speaking, I would say, yeah, I guess it does mean more. For me, it's really more surely laziness that I don't have to check more than one job board. I can just go to my ATS system and all my applications are there. Eventually, you're going to have to apply through the company website anyway to be compliant. So it's just better to go and apply through the direct company site. That being said, time is money, and if you're applying to a bunch of jobs, and I probably wouldn't be going on an employer site for every single job that I'm interested in applying to. You just want to do quick applications.
And with this click here, I believe that is job application 1000. That took quite a bit longer than I expected.
Yeah, no joke. For 1,000 applications in 14 days, I'm very impressed with this guy's dedication.
The worst part of the process is you upload a resume and then not having to refill all the information in. But when the system attempts to upload your information into the fields, but does it incorrectly, and then you have to go back and delete all that information and then re-add it again.
That is exactly what I was talking about through an uncompliant resume template. It's exactly the issue is you upload it and then suddenly it's putting like your last name is Excel proficient. And the reason why it's doing is that's the design, the template actually did that. And I could tell that it was going to do it before he even used this. So that's why you don't want to use a resume template from a graphic designer, because this is not their space. If you're going to use a template from somebody that is specialized and lives and breathes this stuff every single day.
The second worst is assessment test. Instead of taking 2 or 3 minutes to apply for a job, you do an assessment test and you're talking 15, sometimes 20 minutes to apply for a job. The first few were like a little bit fun, but after 2 or 3, they were just brutal.
Yeah, here's the deal. On assessment tests, and employers, if you're watching this, quit with the stupid assessment tests at the application level. It is absolutely, completely uncandidate friendly, uncandidate focused. The candidate experience is terrible with that. Honestly, unless I am absolutely smitten with the company or the job that I'm applying to, if a company is asking me to fill out an assessment of any kind, whether it's a personality profile, a Wonderlic, or anything like that at the application level, I am backing out of that application, closing it down, abandoning the application, and moving on to the next one. So you have to put, how much is your time worth to you? And a company who is putting that in my opinion, a company who puts an assessment in and requires every single candidate to fill it out is not valuing your time. So why should you give them any additional time of your own? So make your decision. I'm not telling you that you should abandon a job application that requires an assessment, but I would think long and hard about whether or not I really wanted that job that badly. I personally would not move forward with an application like that.
Now, one thing that was surprising in this whole process is, you know, the old meme of entry-level job but requires 3 to 5 years experience. Well, I didn't track it for all 1,000 jobs, but I did take a sample of 50 of the jobs that I applied for. Of those 50, 21 of the jobs specifically said, either in the job title or in the job description, that they were an entry-level position. Of those 21, only 2 specifically said that they required experience. Another 6 said something about experience preferred. The rest of those 21 didn't say anything about experience required, experience preferred, and some even advertised that no experience was required. So I think the meme is kind of true to an extent, but gets a bit exaggerated more than reality.
Here's the deal on entry-level jobs, and when an employer puts it out, a lot of times people will send me job postings that say, hey, look, this says entry-level, and it says, really, when you read the job description, it says 5 to 7 years of experience. And I think people are overreacting there, because again, when you push out a job posting, I don't physically go and put a job on LinkedIn. It gets propagated through an ATS system that I never even have to log in to do that. You actually have to select that. And I'm assuming it's machine learning that does that and assumes that it's the entry-level classifications as a pull-down menu. And again, because it automatically scrapes from our ATS system and goes on to into these different job boards. I'm imagining it's more an AI issue than it is a human error. So, you know, use the entry level with a grain of salt. It's not accurate, but it's probably not designed to be accurate to begin with. I would really look at the posting more and see what it says, because I've seen senior manager jobs that are listed as entry level, and clearly it's not entry level. And that also goes to show, when you're searching for jobs, you may want to select each one of those categories: entry level, mid-tier, and executive, because you may find other jobs in there. It's better to search by the job title than it is to search by the level of experience.
So I did hear about a company one time asking for 10 years of experience in a programming language that had only been around for 7 years.
Yeah, that's pretty common. It's probably a recruiter that doesn't quite know the technology who is writing that, or maybe an overzealous hiring manager. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow through at the interview. It's kind of I hear that one.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it's pretty funny. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for the results. I did decide to put on a suit and tie in honor of all the job interviews I didn't go on. Our initial goal was to apply for 1,000 jobs. After a double count and a recount, we ended up applying for 1,003. We received a total of 259 interview requests. We also got 47 flat-out rejections. In addition to all of we received a total of 259 interview requests. We also got 47 flat-out rejections. In addition to all of that, we got 87 calls where they didn't leave a message and I wasn't sure where the call came from.
I mean, honestly, if you put 1,000 applications in, he's getting a 27 or 28% response rate. That's actually really good. I'm kind of shocked with granted, these are entry-level positions that are relatively low paying, but that's a pretty shocking response rate, especially for using a template site and not customizing anything. It does, to me, that proves that companies are desperate for labor right now.
If we assumed all of those calls were to set up an interview, that would push our return rate to 35%. I decided to throw those out though, because even on the first day that we had the number set up, I was already receiving spam calls. So net, that leaves us with around 650.
Yeah, there will be some spam, unfortunately, with especially lower level positions. And when you're fishing in the Indeed ponds and other places like that, you're going to get some pretty low quality employers. So it kind of comes with the territory.
Jobs with no response. Now, I'm sure some of those are like the pizza job and no longer valid, but obviously we're going on about 10 days now. If you haven't called us back yet, you're probably not that thirsty for employees. I'm married now, but back in my dating days.
Okay, so 650 didn't return calls. I mean, some of them, the job's probably been filled. Some of them, you're just not a good fit for the role. Some of them, the employers sit on resumes too long. I mean, that's another thing where they'll sit on resumes. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not desperate for employees. In a lot of cases, recruiters are super overloaded because it's also a buyer's market for recruiters. There's more recruiting jobs open right now than ever before. Somebody has to fill all of them. And when a recruiter is sitting on 30, 40, 50 recs each, it's really hard to go through and maintain that. I mean, that's a huge volume. A typical recruiter, a corporate recruiter that's doing sourcing, in other words, they're actually going out and trying to find candidates because the labor market's tight, typically should be handling anywhere from 7 to, on the low end, probably 5 to 7, depends if like it's tech, up to 15, like 20 at an absolute max. That's really the most that a sourcing recruiter should handle before it's a point of diminishing returns where they just can't physically get to every job. If it's not a sourcing job where it's like more high volume, low input type of roles, like a lot of blue collar roles, then a recruiter can handle upwards of 25, maybe 30. But if it's a sourcing recs, a recruiter handling a high volume is probably why recruiters do sit on applications longer than they would like. Recruiters are overloaded right now. There's a lot of people at the recruiter level who are turning over because they're just burned out.
Days if a girl hadn't called back in 10 days. Now when you compare
I would say, so the 10-day thing I would say is, I mean, it's if you haven't heard back from a company in 10 days, I probably wouldn't hold my breath. But in a lot of cases, they may be in an interview process with another candidate already, and they want to see how it goes through. Maybe that candidate they don't close, and then they go back and revisit resumes that they haven't even looked at yet. So, it could be 10 days is probably a fairly safe bet. I wouldn't, again, hold my breath if I applied for a job and 10 days later I didn't hear back. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a candidate anymore.
Resume A versus Resume B, Resume B did quite a bit better. In fact, of the applications where I used Resume A, regardless of college, high school, or whose name was on top of it, Resume A received a response rate of 22%. You compare that to Resume B, and it got a response rate of around 30%. I'm not sure if it was the content, the layout. I'm not sure what the difference was. I tried to make back on any of the 8. So I think my takeaway here is that the entry-level job market seems to be pretty strong, at least at the time of this video. Getting an interview request back on a third of the applications sent in, that's pretty good, I think. Now, how many of those would have turned into actual jobs? I mean, we'll never know.
All right, so there's the results. And yes, indeed, we are in a job seekers buying market. If you are a job seeker and you are not satisfied with your current situation on any level, whether it's you're underpaid, you're overworked, you're feeling burned out, now's the best time in my lifetime of recruiting to be looking for a new job. And honestly, if you're somebody that's been on the fence about whether or not you want to leave your current employer, maybe you've been there for a long period of time and you're not really sure if the grass is greener, it is worth putting your toe in the water just to see what else is out there. This is the perfect opportunity. And honestly, I'm not sure how long this job market is going to stay the way that it currently is. Eventually the pendulum's going to swing back. And if we head into some economic uncertainty, I don't know what's going to happen to the job market. But me personally, if I'm in a situation where I'm not fully satisfied, I am considering just at least seeing what else is out there, because you probably don't have a better chance to land a dream job than right now. But if you're somebody that needs more help finding your dream job, that's actually something that I specialize in. I've got a website called lifeafterlayoff.com. It's loaded with tips and tricks, all from an insider's perspective. If you want more of my deepest and most intimate knowledge, I actually share that in the form of some training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It is designed to teach you how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of getting noticed for that first round interview. And once you get that first round interview, it's then up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the interviewing process, ultimately to land your dream job, dream offer with your dream company. So if you need some more tips and tricks, more deep tips and tricks, I should say, make sure you check that one out. Hey, appreciate you watching. Thanks again to Logical Finance for providing the great video, and we will see you on the next one.